In the heart of Victorian London, where poverty and privilege collided, where the crisis of hungry children echoed through, and where the weight of injustice hung heavy in the smoke-fired air, one man dared to wield his pen like a sword. His words shocked empires, awakened conscience, and gave voice to the voiceless. This is the story of Charles Dickens. Born on February 7, 1812, in Portsmouth, England, Charles John Hupham Dickens entered a world divided by class and cruelty. His father John Dickens worked as a clerk in the Navy office, a man with dream and depth. The young Charles tasted the sweetness of middle-class comfort briefly, before the further financial mismanagement dragged them into the shadow of debtors' prison. At just 12-year-old, Charles was forced to leave school and work in a blacking factory, labeling bottles for hours on end. These days of hardship carved permanent scars. He never forgot the wrath, the filth, the despairs, and he never forgave the society that allowed a child to suffer for his father's sins. But from this darkness rose a fire. Charles found solace in storytelling. He devoured books, taught himself shorthand, and worked as a journalist. In 1836, at just 24-year-old, he published Sketches by Boz, and soon after, the serialized masterpiece, the Pickwick Papers. It was an instant success. Londoners fell in love with his humor, his characters, his uncanny ability to bring the city under Billy to life. Suddenly, the boy from the blacking factory was the most famous writer in England. Dickens did not write for royalty. He wrote for the forgotten, for orphans, beggars, factory children. In Oliver Twist, he exposed the cruelty of workhouses. In David Copperfield, he bled memories of his own childhood. In Bleak House, he attacked the corruption of the legal system. His characters were not just fiction, they were social commentary. Fagin, Scrooge, Miss Havisham, grotesque yet familiar. Dickens turned entertainment into revolution. Behind the fame was a man plowed by shadow. His marriage to Catherine was strained. He fathered 10 children, yet drifted into the arms of a young actress, Ellen Ternan. He had this affair from the public fearing scandal, yet it exposed the cracks in the idealism. He championed virtue, but lived in complexity. And then came the Stepney horse trial crash in 1865. Dickens was aboard. He helped victims, comforted the dying, and emerged haunted. The trauma shocked his health and his spirit. In his final years, Dickens became a performer. He toured relentlessly. Reading his work aloud with passion and thunder, audience wept and roared, but his body was crumbling. On June 9, 1870, while working on his unfinished novel, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, Charles Dickens died at age 58. He was buried in Point Corner, Westminster Abbey, an honor reserved for literary royalty, but his true monument lives in every reader who ever wept for Tiny Tim, feared for Pip, or changed with Scrooge. Charles Dickens did not just write stories, he wrote truth. He forced the world to look at the wound and whispered, "Do better." He was a child of poverty, a master of empathy, and the timeless voice for justice. This was the story of Charles Dickens. Subscribe to Biosphere.